2022. Although I went for a marketing, totally different field, I continued to self-teach myself web design and web development, and then in general, just computer science as a whole. And then I got my first client in 2004 to develop their website. And my attitude at the time was, well, you go to college to learn how to make money. So I'm now making money. So there's no need for me to be here anymore. And so I am a college dropout, but a self-taught computer scientist, spanning over now, 18 plus years. And it started with web design, then it evolved into full-on web development, starting with your basic, what would be considered your basic LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Then over time, as newer technologies were developed and introduced, started adopting and picking up on those. And then in 2010, when the smartphone boom really started to take off, that's when I hopped headfirst into native mobile development for both iOS and Android. So in general development since 2004, mobile development specifically since 2010. And that's where a primary focus of my attention has been in terms of the front end. I'm still involved with web development, of course, on the front end. But I was really enthralled with with native mobile development for iOS and Android. So that's where a lot of my attention went as far as the front end. And then on the back end, you start migrating or start evolving away from using servers like Apache to one of my favorite servers is Nginx, is the server that I use as part of my stack. And yeah, so that's pretty much my brief history. The industries I've been involved in span from healthcare, both healthcare and medicine and insurance and fintech. In fact, I'm involved back in fintech right now with helping with another startup. Retail. I listed them all. It's because it's in my resume. I make sure to list them all. Let's say e-commerce, energy sector, education, telecommunications, retail, hotel and hospitality, restaurant and food management, advertising, social networking, obviously, and music and sports entertainment. So that is a brief history of my tech history in terms of my profession anyway.
And I absolutely love that. Look, for those who did not hear the introduction, you missed out on a really, really great introduction, okay? I'm letting you guys know that. I don't know if I can recreate it, but what you just heard, there we go, put it over here. So what you just heard from Adrian C. I say the C stands for creator, and I think he's going to adopt that as well. Adrian C. Jackson is a brilliant brain. You guys just heard how he was introduced to tech and how he continued to develop his innate ability that came with developing tech and creating. I'm Totally Randy. I'm a media personality from the Houston Forward Times here in Houston. For all of you guys that are in the metaverse right now, it's so exciting to be here with you guys. Like I said earlier, you probably didn't hear that, but I think news and how we receive our news is basically going to fluctuate into this whole metaverse as well. Breaking news, news, that exclusivity, exclusive news, those kind of things, interviews like we're having right now. This is something that I do for a living, so you guys probably don't know that, but if you want to watch or learn more, go ahead and just go to Instagram. Don't click on that cute dog picture. Don't like that girl's photo. Don't like that guy's photo. You're going to come back to it and just follow at Totally Randy. Also, while we're here and reintroducing ourselves, Adrian, why don't you tell them where they can follow you as well?
Mainly on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Adrian C. Jax, Jax. Most of my stuff, a lot of it can be rounded, but it's a lot of political and social and political commentary that I make. fair warning. I have a potty mouth, but it is what it is. Sometimes you do need to do a lot of cursing in order to get the word out. But that is my Twitter handle, at Adrian C. Jax on Twitter. And when it launches, and we'll get to that, I'm sure further down in his interview, my speaking handle will actually be my actual full name, which will be Adrian C. Jackson. Will be my handle, or is my handle on speaking.
That's right. And don't forget that that C stands for creator. Okay. I also want to go ahead. That's a great way to segue into that. So, that's one thing that we're talking about now. Of course, the hackathon, what we're doing here is about wearable tech, but the way that there's a way for speaking to be a wearable tech. I mean, obviously, it's a platform. Why don't you tell people what speaking is, and kind of give them a little background about it?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, speaking is it's a microblogging social application, very similar to that of Twitter, and it actually came as a result of competing with Twitter. The way it happened was around October, well, on October 1st.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said that the speaking came about after your meeting with Twitter. What do you mean by
No,
that?
no, not meeting with Twitter.
Okay, okay.
Competing with Twitter.
Competing with Twitter. Okay.
Right. On October 1st, 2017, and especially around that time, this was after, of course, the 2016 election. Twitter was, I'll be frank, was doing some crap. A lot of shadow banning of accounts. And they're also, Twitter's historically, and even still to this day, can be and is quite antagonistic towards BIPOC based accounts, especially towards Black women. And around this time, one of my mutual followers, one of my favorite followers, she was getting shadow banned, I noticed. And at that point, because I was getting shadow banned as well, and so I was getting fed up, and so I just tweeted out a post, at the CEO at the time, Jack Dorsey, talking my smack, saying, you don't have anything that's unique and not easily recreatable. So you pushing your luck. And then within a week's time, I just built out a prototype for an iOS version, just a mock-up, just to say, hey, here it is. You don't have anything that's special. So,
And you
and
said
at the
within
point,
a
I was
week's
just
time. I don't know if any of you guys are creators out there. In a week's time, I want you guys to hear something. In a week's time, I can create video content, but we're not talking about video content creating. In a week's time, you created a platform that literally competed with Twitter at the time.
right now, mind you, it was bare bones, because again, it was thrown together, but the main purpose behind it was, this isn't anything special or unique that anyone else can't do. It is very much doable, and
Right.
a large team isn't needed. A large engineer team isn't needed to build one. And then I posted it. I posted a video demonstration of it, and then quite a bit of my followers at the time were pretty much just egging me on to keep going, build it out and just build a full on social application. So I did. So October 1st was the first day that I actually started the full on development of it. Around that time, that's when I came up with the name Speaking, spelled with two E, so it's SPEEKIN apostrophe. And so my initial goal was this was phase one. So for the first version, I wanted to get it released it was quasi public. It wasn't fully public because I didn't put it in the app store, but it was the app was downloadable from the website itself for both iOS and Android. Uh, and I wanted to get it running in time for the release of Black Panther, which was February 16th, 2018. So I managed to get the first version running on February 15th, 2018. And that version had what you spoke of earlier. It had a feature within it where there was a font creator who actually took the alphabet uh, and made the Wakandan based alphabet using its glyphs. And so within the app itself, you can post a Wakandan based speak, which the equivalent of a tweet, and to where you could toggle back and forth. You can read it in the regular English language and toggle it back and forth between English and Wakandan. So that was one of the special features, limited time features, uh, in celebration of the release of Black Panther,
Right.
which serendipitously, uh, this year I've started the campaign to relaunch speaking because I've tried two other times to launch it. And although I did and I'm sure we'll get further along with on this topic within the interview, it always comes down to funding. So, given that I was paying everything out of pocket the first two times, um, and because I hadn't built in any monetization components within the application itself, I had to shut it down both times. But this time around, this third attempt, I finally decided to go ahead and use a Patreon, and in 4 days, 500 patrons came on board to support the efforts of relaunching it. But this was the reason why I say it's serendipitous is because the initial reason was because around the time, this is what, 2 months ago, where Elon Musk made his announcement that he wanted to buy out Twitter.
Right.
Um, and that's when people were hitting up my DMs and emailing me and calling me and like, you need to relaunch speaking. You need to relaunch speaking. You need to relaunch speaking. So I'll say, you know what, if I am going to do it this time, I'm just going to go ahead and take the Patreon route and just let people know, look, as much as I want to do this, and I genuinely want to do this, I'm going to need y'all help in order to get it done.
And
Uh,
this is just to put a break into that right now. This is why um, when I learned about the opportunity to take media into the metaverse, this is why I chose you first, because how we look at VR, right? Like how we look at VR. Number one, shout out to Facebook Meta for for their marketing, because before I called everything, VR, I called everything VR metaverse. Everything VR, I just called it the metaverse. So that's really great marketing to just have that on people's brains. I just wanted to make that side note. But like the reason why I chose you to interview for this was because the way I look at VR and the way a lot of people see VR is that there's no regulations right now, and it's so crazy that your interview is happening right now because yesterday you probably saw everyone was tweeting they're so sick of Instagram. I'll do anything to get old Instagram back. And I was like, well, maybe my Instagram isn't updated because I don't know what everyone's hating from Instagram at the moment. But a lot of people were tweeting that out. You guys can go to Twitter. Some of you guys, if you're watching, already know, like, yes, we're tired of Instagram. So I was thinking to myself, when it comes to these platforms, right? It's a lot of that going on. When they first created the platforms, they were really great. Like the people had the control, and then all of a sudden you ran into ads, you ran into algorithms, you ran into what the platform want you to do to better the platform or to basically just align with their purpose. VR, however, gives the power back to the people. Would you agree, Adrian?
mm, my response to that is it's the people, regardless of technology. the people only have as much control as the platform who built it gives them.
Right.
And
Right.
that's whether
Right.
it's a social application or whether it's a VR platform.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, right now, okay, the same complaints, because although I'm not as active on Instagram, because I've opened an Instagram account over a decade ago and I hardly ever use it. I only have like what, 5 photos uploaded
All
ever.
right.
Um, the thing is, like, say, well, first off, for those who don't know, uh, Facebook did not create Instagram. Instagram was created, and much like also with WhatsApp, they were acquired by
Right.
Facebook slash Meta. So initially, when they were built, they weren't built with how they operate today. They weren't built with that in mind when they were first developed by its original developers.
Right.
Instagram was just that, and photo sharing application.
Right.
I don't even know if they allow video uploads.
Not at first, because I was on Instagram when they first said, and that's the thing. Like, when I think VR allows you to create your own world. Like, when I say give the power back to the people, that's what I mean, right? So, like, instead of going to Twitter, we're going to Speaking because you created that. And then if someone decides to say, well, in the VR world, I want to go to Meeting, that's something that they can create.
But
Um,
it's still all held by whom?
that's that's the number one question, though. When it comes to VR, you don't have to create your world in the metaverse. You can create your own world. The metaverse is over there, but your galaxy is over here. So, like, right?
But who's as far as that galaxy, that platform that it's running on?
I agree. That's
Who
the number one question.
That's the thing, and that's what I mean when I say the people have it only as much power as what's given to them by the original creator of that platform.
Okay. And in that case, we can definitely fall down a rabbit hole of that. So I'm gonna jump back, but I just really wanted to hop in and say that because I thought that was very innovative of you to take, to say, hey, I'm gonna create my own. And this was before, you created Speaking before we were ever introduced to an Oculus, ever introduced to a metaverse, ever introduced to any type of VR in that way. You literally said, why play on your platform? I'm going to just create my own. What challenges did you face outside of, like, obviously, funding? Funding is probably the number one when it comes to black tech creators. Funding is probably number one. What other challenges did you face?
That is the funding part. That's the trickle down for the other things, because I'm the only engineer, the only engineer, the only architect, the only developer for it. And it always boils down to the funding.
Right.
If I had enough funding or more than enough funding to not only take care of myself, but to possibly bring on board other developers and other engineers, then a lot of that workload can be delegated to the other assistants.
Right.
So those are really the main. Honestly, I could just say that one thing: the funding part, because the other part is this. Although I could bring on board other developers and other engineers, which is fine. Even if I only had the funding just for me to work on it as much as possible, that's still perfectly fine, because as the initial developer and architect to begin with, I know where everything needs to be. I know how everything needs to go. Um, and regardless of how much time it takes, if I have that funding in order to do all of that within that scope of time that I have, then cool. So at the end of the day, it sucks to say this. It always, well, then that's not always, about 99.99% of the time, it comes down to the funding aspect,
Hmm.
because the funding affects everything. So that's the main, and for me personally, the only challenge that I have. Everything else, I'm good with. I have the technical skills, the know-how. As far as knowing how to launch it, where to launch it, the deployments, the testing, I have all that covered based on my 18 plus years experience.
Now, let me ask you this. You know, a lot of people, when it comes to blacks in technology, they want you to solve a problem
Mhm.
or see a need and provide a need, or be a resource. What made you decide to say, hey, I'm going to do a social platform?
Uh, well, for one, going back to the original story of getting tired of Twitter's shenanigans, one of the primary goals of speaking is to provide some power, some say so, and some equity towards underrepresented groups, but especially for Black women and Indigenous slash Native American women, who are often the targets on these social platforms, including Twitter and also Facebook and wherever else, and also on YouTube. You know, go to their look in their comment sections, and they're inundated with a lot of racism, misogyny, misogynoir, bad faith criticism, all that. And these platforms, which again, I'm going to be blunt, which are predominantly ran by white and or white adjacent executives who don't particularly have the interest of underrepresented groups best interest in mind, especially Black and Native American women. And so one of my primary goals for the development of speaking, and see, and what I'm about to say will actually segue into another key point, which will actually touch on a point that we talk about regarding the power aspect, right? The owners of the platform are the ones who determine how much power you have. It's still up to them.
Right.
Uh, from the root, from the ground up, I've built into speaking components that give power to said groups,
Okay.
especially towards Black women, Native American women, and other underrepresented groups, LGBTQ, the disabled, and the like. You have to, as an engineer, as a developer, you have to intentionally build those things into your platform, right? It's like I'll give this example. I don't know if you heard about this story, where this was a few years ago, where I think it was at for an airport, where they were utilizing this technology to detect hair texture, right? And it can identify European based hair textures, straight, long, straight, often, blonde or whatever. But it had a difficult time detecting basically kinky hair, our hair, right? Um, and you hear stories about that, and also involving skin tone, right?
Yes, like
And they
the
will,
laser.
and they exactly, and they will fall back to, well, it's the algorithm. I know it's a public forum. Bullshit. Who writes the algorithm? We do. All right. The developers and the engineers are the ones who write the algorithm. Uh, like there's this YouTube. There's another YouTube channel, Answers in Progress, where they actually with a great group, but they did a test on using a facial recognition to detect uh, the face of certain individuals. And the plugin that they used, it was a not Java, Python plugin. Uh, in the description, it says it gave like a high percentage of like 95% accurate. But after using it, in order to detect East Asian based faces, it wasn't doing so well until they found out in the fine print 95% asterisks mainly for white faces. In other words, excluding other groups, including, East Asian, and also obviously, Black and, African American. Uh, that's the thing, and that's what, going back to what I mentioned earlier about it's the responsibility. It always falls back on the actual creators and the developers of the platform, because you have to intentionally build that in, to detect straight hair but not kinky hair, to detect white skin but not darker skin, right? To detect Eurocentric facial features but not other facial features, right?
Right.
Uh, that always falls back on the developers, on the engineers. So when I as I'm building speaking, because I'm always building her, uh, I am building her with the intent of providing power and equity towards these marginalized groups, because they'll be the ones who ultimately have to say so. They will be the ultimate gatekeepers as to who can come on board and who cannot.
Right.
Because as people may scoff at the idea of being exclusive, but I maintain this. I've said this since 2017, and I maintain it today. Not everyone deserves a platform.
Hmm.
Not everyone. You have over 7 billion people in the world, or forget 7 billion people. You have what? Oh, almost 400 million people in the U.S., about 350 million. We've seen what happened in these past two presidential elections in terms of voting patterns and habits. Half of these mofos don't need a platform. Why would anyone, who's good and sane anyway, will want to hear the opinions of someone who thinks my life as a Black man and your lives as Black women value a lot less than theirs, right? Okay, why would I want them on speaking, or why would any platform want them on their platform?
But what do you think people? And I know people have come at you and said that how do you gatekeep that? Like well, let me, because I know the answer, but let me ask for the rest of everyone else. So how do you gatekeep that? And I do want to come back a little bit to something you said earlier, but my question is, how do you gatekeep that?
Well, the way was how I'm building it into speaking. My emphasis, because I have a system in place where, for one, it's invite only. That's number one.
Like Clubhouse was originally.
Yeah, and also for the youngins who don't know, Facebook was
It
initially.
sure was.
Yeah, back
You
in the
had to
day.
have you had to have
Yeah, college
a
email.
college yeah, an
Yep.
edu, right?
Um, so and no, people say, well, of course you can start off with invite only and then open up to everyone else. No, 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 no. Because the initial purpose, the initial concept is my platform is not for everyone. So there's no need to open it up for anyone or everyone to join. That's so it will remain invite only. But the other key component is, for the initial invitations, the first rounds are actually going out to Black women. Like I actually have a database, as I've been developing. I have a database full, and if you were wondering, yes, you are in it. Uh, of the first rounds of the invites that go out, and 99.9% of them of that list are Black women, Black and Native women, and they will have not only invite privileges, but there are other key components within the application that also gives them additional privileges outside of just inviting people. Uh, Basically, crowd control essentially.
Right.
They
And
and that's how you gatekeep. You when you have an intent for to build a platform to protect and give power to a specific audience, you then build it into that platform and give that power over to that intentional audience, and that audience will essentially be the ones who do the gatekeeping.
right.
They're the ones who determine, okay, you're a decent enough person to come on board, and you not so much.
Right.
Uh, and for the record, because some people may construe this, they may say, well, it's okay, so it's only for Black and Native American women. No, it's not only for them, right? The platform, in terms of whom it welcomes the broad spectrum of individuals.
Right.
Black, white, man, women, cis, trans, LGBTQ, able, non-disabled, disabled, whomever. It's just that they determine if you are a decent enough person, uh, worthy enough to come on board the platform.
And let's hover around this conversation right now, because the reason why I asked you about what problem does it solve, does it have a need, is it a resource, is because sometimes in our community, as Black creators and Blacks in tech, we have this insatiable need to be relevant for something. And it made me think of, and I know I go all the way around the world to make a point sometimes, but it made me think of, when, do you remember Mayor Elise Parker?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mayor Elise Parker, she introduced STEAM. At first it was STEM, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
STEM, but she put an A in there, and she put that A in there for arts.
Yep.
And I was really, really, really just taken aback by that, because a lot of times we look at the arts as if it's not a key component in human society. We look at the arts as if they are, a throwaway, a waste
Mm-hmm.
of your time. And that's how I feel that some people feel about not speaking, but like some people feel about, as a Black creator, you took a week to create um, a social platform, when you could have been creating something that could solve a medical need, when you could have been creating something that, and we kind of have that type of creator elitism a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I thought that it was very important that we have this conversation. That's why I really love Wearable Tech Ventures for bringing me on, because some of these conversations are hard to have, but they are very necessary. You know, what are what's your opinion about that?
Regarding the STEAM aspect, or just the
No,
topic
just
in
on
general?
that aspect of where, as Black creators, we know that, like, Blacks in tech, it's very important that we have a space, that we have a community,
Mm-hmm.
but that there are sometimes an elitism when it comes to
Yes.
creativity, or the type of tech we're creating. And a lot of people would say, with your brilliant brain, why would you create a social platform when there's medical needs that needs to be created? There's educational tech that you can create. There's so many other things that provide a need or source, or resource for our people, that you could create, but you created a social platform.
Right. Uh, my initial response to that is always, okay, I'm going to sound harsh. Number one, if you want that thing so bad, you can pick up a computer science book, learn to do it, and build it yourself. That's number one. This is how I am on my Twitter. I just keep it real with everybody. That's number one. Number two, you have no idea what other folks are working on. That thing that you're demanding from this one person, another person is already be in the process of building it yourself. That's number two. Number three, the thing that that person built, they may not have an interest in these other fields that you're speaking of. They don't. Okay, this is going to sound harsh. They're not obligated to use their skills or talents or their gifts for this particular thing. If they choose to, that's great. That's awesome even. But they're not bound by anything to do so. Right. So, and folks have to keep that in mind. You're not, people aren't entitled to other people's gifts and talents. All right. It's great when that person does decide to use their gifts and talents towards that field, towards that area. But people shouldn't automatically assume, just because they can do it, that they, just automatically should do it just because. And also with the fields that you spoke on, you need a heck of a lot more knowledge than just computer science in order to build stuff uh within these other industries. Like I've like again within the 18-year span, I've worked in the medical field. I've worked on a medical device itself, uh, in which I had to learn not only the technical aspects of the device, I had to learn the medical components in order to make sure that the computations that need to be made are made correctly. So I had to learn a bit of biology stuff while I was on the job in order to build it appropriately. Uh, when I worked at Houston Methodist, one of the things, although the thing that we were working on was integrating their My Epic platform, one of the things that we were looking into developing, and this goes back into the wearable topic, uh, it was something I was going to pitch to their board, was utilizing the wearables. And this is before there were any additional advancements on Apple watches or Android wears, uh, biosensory components on their watches. But utilizing it within their healthcare system, within the hospitals, to help, you know, doctors and nurses, or mainly nurses, in terms of monitoring patients, not for everything, obviously, because, you know, yeah, there are some limitations, but for some things, uh, using the sensor components within the watches, uh, and that was something, uh, you know, I was looking to pitch to their board until, you know, I got pulled over to another gig. Uh, but even then, although again, I knew my technical skills to do it, I still had to learn some medical aspects, some uh, you know, how the workings inside an actual hospital, you
Right.
know, in order to learn how to make sure that it does work and that it does flow within their structure of how they operate, and what's required of them as, you know, the doctors and nurses. Um, so when you that's the one thing I can say about it in terms of that component of elitism. But when you initially said elitism, I thought you were going to go in the direction of what I was about to speak on, right? Real quick, was this sense of once once you essentially make it, this look down upon those who are also trying to slide into the field. Or, well, not only that, that's one aspect, but there's another. I know I'm deviating, which I do apologize. This thing that's going on currently, where some folks, who, I'm just gonna be blunt, I don't even think they're fully in tech, but they're using the tech name or the tech brand as though it's some type of quick crypto or NFT type of thing, where tech is just a hot word. Where, you know, buy my ebook where I teach you how to break into tech. I hate
Right.
that. You don't break into tech, just like you don't break into law, or you don't break into medicine. Just
Right.
like law and medicine, they are lifelong practices. It's not something that you just pick up overnight and get into for a quick buck. Because yes, working in tech, it's a great paying gig, but it's a great paying gig for those who know their stuff.
That's right. You know, it's so funny that you say that. I can literally sit here and talk to you all day long. There was a lot of things that we did not get to touch on. Number one, like intellectual property, when it came to you being, you know, in months and months and months interviews with Google. You
Mhm.
know, your intellectual property, things that you put out on speaking, that you saw other, you know, platforms, you know, that I'm not going to say, but other platforms kind of integrate into their platform as well. Intellectual property is very huge. There's a lot of other, you know, things that I wanted to ask you, like what do you see in the tech world? But I guess the last thing that we would land on, because we're getting ready to wrap it up here, and thank you again to Wearable Tech Ventures for Hackathon 2022. Absolutely amazing. But I just want to wrap up and just, you know, where do you see wearable tech or tech in general going, and where do you fit in with that?
Well, as far as where wearable tech is going to go, with each new iteration is going to get better. With like although I'm an Android consumer, but because I develop for both iOS and Android, I'm on the up and up as to what also what Apple is introducing, and they are introducing some good things, like with the improvements of their heart censoring monitor on their wearables. I think they're one of their newer versions. Can detect heart palpitations, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Um, Things like that. So a big boost as far as the medical aspect of wearables. Um, in terms of VR, and this is just a personal anecdote for me. I told you this before. I currently have an HTC Vive. However, when I was moving into my new place, it spilled over off my desk and it landed, and one of the lenses broke. So I have to get a new one anyway. Um, but since they discontinued the Vive, I may just replace it with the Valve, which is what the Vive was based on. And the way I used it, mainly, I didn't use it for games. When I first got it, I did try it, for games, but I didn't initially get it for gaming. The primary purpose why I got it was for educational purposes. I don't know if you are familiar with this learning tactic or learning technique. It's called the Memory Palace, or AKA the Tower of Loci. Okay, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Yeah. The way it works is we as humans, we are spatial learners. Like it's how we know how to travel down certain paths after only a few times of doing so by memory. And the way the Memory Palace works is it's a learning tool, learning technique that allows you to help you memorize really any subject through spatial learning, where you would use the area that you're in, whether it's an apartment, building, wherever it is. It can be any location, outside, inside, and you plot your course, and along that course, you create these little stories or mnemonics that help explain or detail the thing that you're trying to learn. And the way I was using my VR headset was there's this program called Google Tilt Brush, and it's a painting application. But within that painting application, it's a huge environment, uh, and I would use that environment to go around and paint my memory palace, and that's what I would use as my learning mechanism. So I use my VR headset as an educational tool, and I actually see that in a lot of classrooms as well.
All right. Well, look, let me explain to you guys. Make sure you go and follow Adrian at Adrian C. Jacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
on Twitter. Make sure you guys go and follow him. Get everything you guys need to know. I'm totally Randy. Thank you for watching, tuning in. Follow the Forward Times. Guys, we're out.
That's a